So many people just feel really lonely. Just there's this sense of disconnection. Everyone is in their own little box. And I feel like there has been this big wave towards we want more community, we want more togetherness, we want more connection. And then the question is always, how do we do it? And always going to the layer underneath, the needs. What is the need here? My need is to connect. My need is for intimacy. My need is to really feel that our hearts are together. When we are in our trigger, when we are upset about something, parts of us come in that do not want to connect. They just want to either be safe or win or belong or have like something that is like really important, just needs to happen now or else. And suddenly there isn't that presence and spaciousness anymore. But so often it becomes you against me, where I don't feel like I can be safe if I don't win. Or I don't feel like I can be heard if I don't shout. We want to break that circuit. We want to take a breath.
I feel like everyone has this advice of it's all about communication. And as I really think about that advice, I think, yeah, it's not about just communication in the good times. It's actually your ability to have communications in the tough times. And in that sense, I really think it's about how well do you repair.
Often we attract someone who kind of mirrors our childhood trauma and allows us to heal, right? This is kind of the thing of where we are
To reprogram.
To meet our own pain over and over again until we kind of meet it with love.
Welcome to the Enlighten DXB Podcast. I'm your host, Erika Welch, and I'm absolutely divinely excited to introduce my guest today. It's her second time on the show, Miss Riké John, who's a love and relationship coach here and around the world. Welcome to the show again, Riké.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Considering we created this podcast, or I created it with the intention of having conversations that would help us deepen intimacy with ourselves, whether that's spiritually or psychologically, but also with others. This is a very apt episode where we get to talk all about relating with our community, relating with our sisters, our brothers, our friends, our family, our romantic partner, which is usually a big one. So many people might say it's part of the spiritual path. To heal in partnership and in relationship. And so I'm so excited to sit down here and speak about all of these things with you.
I'm excited too. That's exactly the things that light me up, right? And that I love to talk about. It's like, how do we connect? And yeah, just as you were speaking, I was thinking, so many people just feel really lonely. Just there's this sense of disconnection. Everyone is in their own little box. And I feel like there has been this big wave towards we want more community, we want more togetherness, we want more connection. And then the question is always, how do we do it? How do we actually do it? Like everyone wants it, but how? Yeah.
Are you getting that from I know in my friend group, and I can speak for myself, I definitely, in the fast-paced world of work, with the added layer of, much more significant remote work since COVID, it's been an adjustment. And at first, I think there was this honeymoon period, and it's only recently that I've realized, and I think at the beginning of the year, there was a study released that said that those that have hybrid work, where they'd get to go into the office, and those that get to also have that time at home are the most happiest. And the least happiest were 100% remote workers. And I thought, gosh, do I count in that category? And yeah, I think there is this sense of loneliness, even though we're on Zoom or GChat every day chatting to people, but it's not a real connection. It's this get work done mode, which actually we were just talking about. Yeah.
And I think there is the work side, right, where we would usually connect with colleagues and kind of be there. But even in our private lives, I saw this post the other day. It was like this, like you're falling into the catching up trap, that you meet your friends only to catch up of what's going on in your life versus making memories together and actually connecting on a deeper level. And I feel like this is something that I see a lot with my clients, but also with my friends, of like people saying, is that it? Can't be it. Like somehow I don't feel really met and seen, and where can I really be myself, and where can I really belong, and not try to perform and have a mask and be good, but really just let my being be there. And I think this is what I would say I have created with you, or like I allow myself to do with you in our friendship. I'm really just there, just being myself. Yeah. And that's very precious. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. And I would say the same. And I'm noticing that in my circumstance, as life has gotten busier and busier and faster paced, even though I feel that I am good at making connections with people, in fact, the busier I am or the more burdened I feel, the less space I have for others. I'm super curious with your clients that you speak about this lack of intimacy or depth, or what do you see as some of the sort of overarching, challenges or barriers to that connection?
I think the first word that comes is busyness. Just as you said it now, like almost all couples I speak to, I'm just thinking, but most of them are like, we just don't have time, especially if you add kids in the mix. Like if couples manage to have a 10-minute connection time every day, that's already a lot for many of them. And so we're really working on carving out that time first and foremost. And then it's like, what do you do in that time? How do you not just sit next to each other scrolling, but how do you kind of face each other? And there's a beautiful term that's from Terry Real, who I studied with, to go from side-by-side energy, where you're doing stuff together, like parenting or working or making dinner or doing groceries, to turn towards each other to nose energy, where you're really facing each other. It's like, hey, hello you. How are you? What's going on with you? And so I think these are the two kind of really basic steps, is making time. And, we had this conversation many times of how do we kind of put the times into our busy lives where the only intention is to connect, and maybe to have like an adventure or fun or kind of do something else. But it's for us. It's not about anyone else. It's for us.
With friends, I feel like it's a little bit easier, right? Because we really want, and if it is something that you value, which both of us really do, then we put it into our calendars, we make it happen, whether it's a call or it's a hike or coming together in a living room and just going, okay, phones off, have some cacao, look at each other in the eyes and go, what is going on? But somehow, as I'm thinking about how easy that is for us, I find in romantic partnership, for example, and I'm sure many people would agree or feel the same in their relationships, somehow it feels harder in that. And I'm trying to figure out why.
I think there are several factors. Like the first thing that comes to mind is like this paradox of intimacy, of this partner, this person is so close to our heart. They're so important. We want to be so close to them. But also, what if they reject us? What if we suggest something, we try something, or we show a side of ourselves that maybe is a bit difficult? What if they reject us? That's so terrifying that maybe some of us kind of hold back a little bit more and kind of go with the flow. Everything's okay. I don't need to rock the boat. Like this is something that I've heard many people say. I'd like this. It's good enough. It's good enough. We don't need to rock the boat.
You're right, actually. I'm feeling into it and going, as much as I trust my partner, there is an even deeper trust. And it's both trust and it's also a de-risking. With you or with some of my girlfriends, if I show a part of myself that I'm really not, I don't like, I have this confidence that as sisters, we'll hold each other to that and it won't break our friendship. Because also, as beautiful as friendships are, our friends don't have to deal with us on the level of a romantic partner.
True. And if I may share about what I know about you, is I think you are pretty blessed in having had very little to non-friendship trauma. Like you're just a very good friend. You're like had a lot of luck in your life and a lot of also effort put into friendships, that fear isn't there so much. Other people have exactly that same fear that you and I have, mainly with partners, with their friends. Oh my God, what if they reject me? What if I don't belong? What if I'm being kicked out of this community? What if I say something wrong? And so just to normalize that, that's definitely there, and that's just, you know, everyone has their own baggage to carry, has their own trauma. And with partners, as you just said, there is something where our deepest, youngest parts coming out in partnerships, and the stakes are just higher. And because for these parts of us, the risk of being rejected, being left, not feeling good enough, having these old wounds triggered is just higher in these partnerships. And at the same time, that also gives us more potential for intimacy, more potential for depth. Because if we dare, and we are then being met and seen, and we're opening towards each other, then And
what's super interesting with what you just said about me not having a lot of traumas around friendships is I'm like, yeah, of course, because my philosophy around friendships is more is more is more. And I'm definitely not a possessive friend. I'm someone who's very much like, oh, if one of my friends falls in love with another friend and they hang out together without me, I'm like, yay, the community gets stronger. Obviously in a romantic context, because I fall into the cis monogamous partnership structure, there is this sense of if you are someone who likes monogamous relationships, even if they might be one monogamous relationship after another, the reality of that pathway you've chosen means that you will fail until you succeed. And by that, I mean a monogamous relationship must dissolve in order for the next monogamous relationship to start. And so by nature, I, of course, have collected more, whether they're micro or large scale traumas from breakups in romantic relating. While I have, I've only experienced one, maybe two friendship breakups. And I know there are many of our friends that have, explained that they've had more of those. But that puts into context for me of like, yeah, of course, these are two different realms. And so it comes with different risk profiles and investment and sort of conditioning around how I think people will respond.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as we talk about the things that, all of us obviously don't want to be lonely. We want deeper connection. It sounds easy to say, let's just turn towards each other and spend time together. But it's hard. We're already speaking into this. So let's talk about the other side of it. The other side of it is there's also many things we do in relationships that actually creates distance, whether we know it or not. Can you speak a little bit about that? Why we do that? What are some of the ways in which we commonly do that in relationships?
Yeah, I think it links exactly to the flip side of the question that you just asked. It's always both. It's what connects us. If the absence of that is there, it disconnects us. And I think one of the biggest things is presence. And it's such a, sometimes, I don't know, like wishy-washy term. Oh, what do you mean being present? But being present is this energy of I'm actually here and I'm actually having room and space for you right now. And I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not thinking about other things, but I'm actually here. And we can feel it. We can feel if another person is actually with us and actually cares in that moment. Not that big picture, right? Most people in couples, they do care about each other, but can they in that moment have that energy of, yeah, I'm with you, I'm here. And that presence comes from body language, comes from eye contact, comes from not interrupting, comes from active listening, maybe asking questions, maybe giving empathy, mirroring. Mirroring is one of the first tools that I teach couples. Literally just to repeat back what you just heard. It is the simplest thing, and it's so difficult because whenever someone says something, we want to give a response. We want to be smart, or we have our own thoughts, or we want to kind of, tell them not to worry or whatever it is. And to just sit there and be like, oh, wow, so this is what's going on for you. This is what you feel. So I imagine it's hard. And that's empathy. That's what a coach does. That's what a therapist does. This is why people go to therapy or coaching and come out and be like, oh my God, I've been heard and understood. Because the coach sits there and goes like, oh yeah, and just repeat back. I'm obviously oversimplifying.
Yeah.
There is a huge power in it though, to be able to take a breath and not make it about you, but actually make it about the person who's in front of you.
Yeah. And as I feel into that, again, the culprit behind not being able to be there 100% and be present is this notion that we are too busy. And so everything is just like what did you need? Okay, moving on. Versus, it's not just being engaged, but I really, the energy of someone who's super present, even if they're silent, is someone who you can feel that 100% of their energy is on you. Yeah. And particularly as women, but I would say men as well are sensitive to it. But particularly as women, I would say we are incredibly intuitive and aware that even if a partner or a friend is there in the room paying attention to what we're saying, if even 2% of them is thinking about something else, we're aware.
Yeah. And also not to demonize that, right? Because we are also humans. I'm just thinking of having a call with my mom, and I notice when she's like watering the plants or emptying the dishwasher, I notice how, I love you, Mom, but how like 5% of her attention just goes off.
Yeah.
And that's also okay. And I think there is something really powerful in having the ability to speak into that moment and be like, are you here? Can I just make sure that you're really hearing me? I would love for you to kind of give me the sense that we're here in this together. I don't know. There's so many ways how you can say it in a way that isn't blaming or judging. That reminds me of a concept from authentic relating, where there are 3 levels of how we interact with each other. There is the informational facts. There is the emotions. How do I feel about a situation? And there is the third one, which is the relational layer of how do I feel being with you right now? Sitting here with you, I feel relaxed, feel a little bit excited, but I'm also feeling really warm and really focused on your eyes. That's how I am right now. And that brings us so often back into the present moment. And then we're kind of there with each other. So this is also one of the tools which I think is surprisingly simple. And we can prompt each other by, what's it like for you to share this with me? What's it like for you to tell me about your day? How do you feel about being here?
So the first layer is informational. Yeah. The second layer is emotional.
Like,
so how
today,
do you feel?
Exactly.
How
so
does your heart
today,
feel today?
I don't know. Today I went to the gym and then I had a shower and then we had lunch and we came here. I felt really proud of going to the gym, and the lunch was really yummy. That was great. And me sharing this with you, me sitting here right now, I just feel a big sense of appreciation for living with you right now and for having that connection. So we go down through the layers into more of a vulnerable depth, it's just more personal.
Yeah. Right? And it instantly opens my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. It's a beautiful example.
And, even you saying that is being in the relational layer. Because when I hear you say your heart is opening, my heart is opening. It's like, oh, look, the fact that I have goosebumps, the fact that I shared with you how I feel opens you. Oh, isn't that the sweetest thing?
So sweet.
Yeah. And so we can do that. And we can, I really encourage people to make it a conscious practice. And that's where sometimes it helps if you have like a reference, like a book, a podcast, a coaching or whatever, where you can be like, this person taught us this, let's bring it in. So we can it's almost like outsourcing a little bit of the responsibility of, it's not like I want to have this discussion with you or to have this kind of interaction with you, but there is this good tool. Let's do this good tool. And it's helpful for us.
Let me double tap on that though, because I can picture so many, and I can fall into this category sometimes. I mean, recently there was something like this that my partner and I have moved past. But when you're really both incredibly busy especially in this part of the world. People are traveling, often in different countries. You're just trying to find instances to connect. And maybe you've fallen into a little bit of a rut where you can't remember the last time you really felt relationally met in that deep intimacy for long periods of time. And, I say that, and it could have been, 4 weeks ago, but it feels like an eternity because of everything else that's happened over the few weeks. What would you say to someone like that it would be out of the question for them to say, hey, check out this 45-minute long podcast. What could they do to really take ownership of it? Again, like you said, not be critical of it, and really invite their partner to meet them there. Not as like, I know better and da-da-da, but actually like, hey, this is really important to me. And then, speak to that couple out there right now. That's like, yes, please tell me the answer.
Yeah. So much of what the answer is to what I think you're asking is already in that question of inviting. How do we make a request for something that's not a demand? Because people are incredibly sensitive to criticism. Most people are, especially men, but also many, many women.
Also women.
Totally.
But high performers, I would say, in general.
Yeah. Looking at you.
Yeah.
And so the best way to get more of what you want is to praise what you already get. To be like, I love when we connect. I love when we sit down. This is so beautiful. I want to feel you. This is wonderful. Like, speak into the positive coupled with appreciations, right? The opposite of that, which usually doesn't work, is nagging. You never. I wish you would. My ex-partner did. My friends do and you don't. This does not work because the other person just goes like, if you, sorry, this is just shutting me down. So we want to be positive. Of course, to a degree, right? There comes a time when if the other person has really been unresponsive and unreceptive to any of this, then we can get a bit more like, listen, this really needs to happen now. But generally, asking for something that has a positive connotation and always going to the layer underneath, the needs. What is the need here? My need is to connect. My need is for intimacy. My need is to really feel that our hearts are together and I just want to cuddle and I just want to be close to you. Most people in relationships will be like, oh, actually, that would be nice.
So let's do a role play. So someone who you're someone who's deeply desires to connect with their partner. And actually, it's been a crazy 6 months, maybe more. They literally cannot remember the last time that they've been able to just be with this person, not for logistics or, but really like have this romantic moment. And they're dreaming about this rom-com romantic date where they feel completely in tune with this other person. You've got your partner sitting across from you, which I'll play. And, I'm sitting at the kitchen table scarfing down lunch because I'm running to another meeting.
Yeah.
Go.
Hi, my love.
Hi.
You know what I would really love is if we could take some time later today when there is a moment of spaciousness to just sit down and connect for a moment. Are you open to that?
Yes. My goodness. I would really love to do that, but I'm really busy until like 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Could that work?
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you want to have a little bit of wind down time after? So maybe we do like 8:30 or 9, something like this?
Yes. With wine.
Yeah. Great. Let's make it a date. And let's also just like, there's no big expectations. It doesn't have to be anything big, but I'd love for us to just sit down and maybe hold hands and take a breath and just check in with how we are.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah. Okay. I'll be home at 8.
Great. So you're obviously very receptive in that role play. You're like, because do you think you're speaking to the truth of what you actually want?
I just assume that even like all people
want to connect.
Men or women just want to connect.
Yeah.
But is there an alternate universe where...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
because for many people that's scary. Because what if I do it wrong? What if she wants something from me and she expects this big romantic gesture from me and I don't know how to deliver that, and then I'm the bad guy who didn't do what she wanted and now already she's annoyed at me. There is the fear of fucking up sorry for swearing, but for screwing up in intimacy. You know, there's the fear of doing it wrong, especially if you have a history of having done it wrong, so to say. And this is where I always advocate for taking the pressure off. Like, communicate clearly what you want, but also let go of the outcome. And if we connect for 5 minutes today, that's better than not having 5 minutes. And of course, ideally you want 2 hours and you want it to end in tantric lovemaking, but maybe you're just sitting there and having a check-in. You know, maybe that's as far as it goes today, and then tomorrow there's more. So you want to build on it. I think expectations and pressure are real intimacy killers. And we so often put these unconscious expectations on each other, and sometimes very conscious, sometimes very
unconscious,
demanded. No, but sometimes also very like, I need you to do this or else, or or you're a shitty person if you don't. And then this just brings us further apart. And then, of course, you know, we can always think, how would I react if someone were to talk to me like that? If someone were to tell me that if I don't show up for intimacy the way that I want, then they're really disappointed in me. Right. And my friend's husband is so great at this and you're not. Like, that's usually not the way to go.
Yeah.
But so can I just reflect a few things that I did in that mini role play?
Yes.
First of all, is first of all, connect. Hi, my love. Right? Just sweetness. Then ask for consent. Ask for an agreement. Rather than being like, I need you to connect with me now. You are wolfing down lunch. You have a meeting in 10 minutes. Can we have a deep check-in? No, it's not going to work. I mean, maybe. But there is this invitation to ask for consent. Ask for an agreement.
Yeah.
When does it work for you? And to get that, right? And you jumped in very quickly very positively, which was super sweet. And then also to make it again spacious. To be like, if I'm putting myself in your shoes and you have been working 10 hours and at 8 o'clock I expect you to sit down and connect with me, I don't know. Maybe you finish at 8. Maybe you scroll on Instagram for 10 minutes. Maybe you answer some messages and you have had a bit of like time for yourself. And then you have spaciousness and capacity for me. Now, granted, that's all me being very gracious and very generous. Usually, the person who would be in my shoes is also in pain.
Aggrieved.
Of like, I am lonely and sad. And it's really hard to be like the patient one, you know?
And it's really hard because not to project it onto your partner.
Yeah.
100%. And maybe it really is your partner that, you know, has the crazy schedule and maybe you've made a few attempts. But usually I think when we look back, we go, yeah, they might be like a cause of the situation we're in. But if we really look at ourselves, we haven't actually done the work to step forward and go, okay, how can I change the situation to be a little bit better?
Yeah. And then, I mean, there's the whole like masculine, feminine thing where many women expect the man to do this, but then the woman isn't even receptive, right? I sometimes have clients where the woman is very much like in control of everything and is like managing everything, but then she expects him to swoop her off her feet. And he's like, I don't even know where to enter. Like, where can I, there is no entry point for me where you're not in control. And so both of them need a bit of like an adjustment, a softening. I don't believe in putting the responsibility all on one partner. It's always both. At the least, it's the communication of both. So the person whose needs aren't met, if they haven't spoken up for what they want, it's very hard for the partner to read their mind magically and get them what they do want. And that speaking up is so hard because of what we talked about before, and also of maybe not having the right tools. And also, when we are in our triggered place, we have our inner parts come up, what we talked about last time, right? The inner child or inner protectors. And these inner parts are usually not the ones who want to connect and who want to be generous and loving. They're like, I want my needs met now, and you're not giving it to me, so all of this
tantrum.
Yes, very normal. Also, I think a big part of this is just awareness and normalizing. We all have these parts. We all go into this. It's okay, but we want to recognize that. We want to notice ourselves. Oh, wow. Right now, I'm blaming my partner for not being loving towards me while I have been critical of him for the last 2 weeks. Okay. Turn the sword inward. I love this phrase of like, you're out there with your little sword fighting everyone. look at yourself, like look in your own mirror. What can you do? What can I do to start with? And kind of be the person who will then elicit the response from the other.
Yeah.
And it's hard work. I'm not going to lie. It's not easy.
I also wanted to touch on, this date that these guys are coming to at 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. And I know one of the things that I have really enjoyed implementing in my relationships is just a round of appreciations.
So big. Which
is just this structured way of popcorn style. Now my partner knows that I ask this sometimes, and he actually enjoys it, I think. Who wouldn't? But, I just say, hey, can we do a round of appreciations? He goes, okay. And we sit up and we look at each other, and then someone goes first and they go, I really appreciated the way that you unloaded the dishwasher last week. And this is how it made me feel. Like I felt like so cared for, and then they would go and say, oh, I really appreciated how you called me after this thing. It made me feel like thought of, whatever it is. And you kind of do 5 each. And by the end of it, you feel divinely in love with each other because of things that have already passed. And we haven't had an opportunity to be thankful or grateful in the moment. And I'm curious, is there 1 or 2 other tools in the toolbox or exercises that you might recommend for that person out there being like, okay, I can set up this date, but then I'm gonna freak out a little bit about what am I supposed to do on this date to create that intimacy. Yeah.
Can I just piggyback on the appreciations because this is so big. There's actually research around the ratio of positive to negative interactions between couples. And even in fights, ideally, it should be at least 5 to 1, meaning 5 positive to 1 negative interaction. And ideally in everyday life, you want to go to 20 to 1. Maybe even 100 to 1. It's very hard, but the appreciations are so helpful because we are wiring our being, our system to, hey, this person gives me good feelings. There is love here. There's kindness here. And I'm working with couples where they've had a lot of hardness and hardly any communication between each other. And we have implemented appreciations as a daily tool, no matter what. And they literally say to me after a week, the energy in our house has changed. The children are noticing it. There is kindness floating around between us because we make a point every day of checking in and saying what we like about each other and what we're grateful for and what we celebrate. And so that's definitely a great one. I also love to share what we celebrate about ourselves, which is also vulnerable, but it's also really sweet to be like, wow, I'm really happy how I unloaded the dishwasher and I'm really proud of myself for keeping the house so nice. Or I just like that the food that I made, or right? It doesn't even have to be things, but it can also be qualities that we have. I just like how generous I am with my time and that I'm looking after my friends or whatever it is. It opens the door into our inner being as well for the other to see us.
I love that.
And, it can be, of course, we don't want to go into overly boasting. Bragging, even though bragging is also really cool. I don't know if you know Mama Gina. She has a practice of bragging. And sometimes with some of my friends, when we're really down, or one of them, and she's really, really down, I'm like, girl, send me a voice message, brag, 10 minutes, go. And then after 10 minutes of her bragging about herself, the state has shifted. It's okay.
Right.
So this is something that I really love. And asking for tools, I think the simple power of a check-in, a timed check-in. I'm a huge fan of time boxing things, because we often have the tendency to go on for 20 minutes and we lost the other person. But let's set a timer for 5 minutes and we just talk about what we feel and what's going on. And we have space for each other. It's very simple. It's very beautiful.
I love that.
And then I think when we're talking about intimacy dates or just connection dates, especially in romantic relationships, I think physicality is really important. And that can just mean let's hold hands. Let's breathe together. The other day I had a couple that in a session they hugged where she straddled him and yap, so she was sitting on him and they just held each other. And we time boxed it for 2 minutes and they were like, that was so intimate. Oh my God, that was so heart opening. It's the simplest thing, but again, it's the presence. You're actually doing it with presence. You're actually hugging each other or you're snuggling up to each other. And then, of course, there are more tools where one that I really like, it comes from Layla Martin, my coach on my teacher on sex, love, and relationships. She's a tool called In the Arms of My Love, where one person is holding the other person, and the person who's holding is telling the person that's being held the things that they want to hear. So before you have a conversation, what is it I really want to hear? You're enough. I love you as you are. You're safe with me. I always communicate with you. I think you're super hot. Whatever the thing is, and you're being held, and the other person is saying that to you. Again, it's a thing. It's a vulnerable thing. It's not something we just do naturally. But once we suggest something like this, it's really powerful, and it's really, I think for most people, they can feel really quickly the impact of that and the connection that comes from that.
Okay. So now we've got all of these positive things that people can go and implement right away. But what I would love to dive a little bit deeper on is now having a little bit more introspection about how we are as people in relationship during conflict. And I know that you have a bunch of amazing things to say about this that really makes me kind of go, oh, yeah, I think I'm one of those and I'm one of those. So this is the part where we get to dig deep a little bit and be really honest for everyone that's listening and watching about how is it that you fight? How is it that you show up when you are stressed and too busy? How is it that you're the problem, basically? Which I think is incredibly important for all of us to understand. So yeah, how is it that we're all our own problems, Riké?
Yes, we are. I think that acknowledgement is the very first super important step. And basically to really make it really simple, when we are in our trigger, when we are upset about something is happening, we have a reaction in our nervous system, in our body. Most of us can feel it, like something shifts right in our physiology. Parts of us come in that do not want to connect. They just want to either be safe or win or belong or have something that is really important. This needs to happen now or else. And suddenly there isn't that presence and spaciousness anymore. And that's, as we all do, when our inner parts come in. And so one tool I really love is from Terry Real, who's an amazing, amazing teacher on relationships. He has a book called Us. I think everyone should read Us by Terry Real. And he classifies how we go out of our center through a grid. And imagine there is one of the axes is our level of self-esteem. And our self-esteem can be really healthy in the middle. But also sometimes when we are really triggered, we go up. We go into grandiosity, which we call one-up, where our self-esteem is inflated and suddenly I'm right and you're wrong, and there is all of this looking down at another person. So that is one of the things that we really can find about ourselves. Wow, am I putting myself one up right now? Do I know better? Do I think that, am I really righteous? And I'm really sure that I am correct and the other person is wrong.
I can vouch for this, by the way, for sure. And I think everyone, by the way, I think as you go through these quadrants, everyone is a little bit of everything, right? Yes. But I think as the audience listens and watches you describe each of them, it's important to figure out which one you most are, or the one that you most gravitate towards as a defense mechanism. And I would say, I unfortunately go into grandiosity often.
Yeah, and there are different reasons why we go into grandiosity. So a lot of especially old school therapy would say grandiosity is always a reaction to shame, to not feeling good enough. So I have to overplay and going into grandiosity. Something that Terry Real has brought in is also grandiosity can just come from you were never stopped as a child, right? You had it modeled maybe by others or you brought in your own grandiosity and no one said this isn't right. And you were just this entitled kid that kind of came into being an entitled adult. And it's not about having the shame underneath. But I think most people have underneath this, oh my God, because that's the flip side that's going down, right? So now we went one up, but the flip side is going one down into shame. I am not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm just not good. There's something wrong with me. I'm bad. Oh my God, I screwed up. And now the world is falling apart and I'm so small and all of this. So I don't know, even if I'm talking about it, I know for the listeners or viewers, when I speak into it, I even feel my body cringe down and just deflate and get a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
That's like the shame half of it, right? We have grandiosity and we have shame.
Yeah, and I can speak from my personal experience that it is that, ultimately it's usually a not good enough wound and being questioned or, about where I stand on something or if I didn't do something properly.
Yeah.
But it instantly takes me back to childhood.
Yes.
And of course, this is therapy talk, right? It always comes back to childhood. But the other element I was going to say was, this is how my parents fought. So it's not just about me, but this is how I learned that if someone, is upset with someone else, then the response to that is grandiosity or like, no, I'm doing all of the things,
Yeah.
And so that was just what was modeled to me, and it's something that I'm having to unlearn.
Yeah. And this is where it's really, really helpful to have a clear view, or more or less clear view on what happened in our childhood. Because whatever we experience in our childhood, we either model it, as you just said, like we then kind of repeat it, or we react and rebel against it. We do the opposite, right? So maybe in your, I'm just thinking of a few clients where in their household there was a lot of shouting, a lot of anger, and they would never get angry. They would go all the way to the opposite and was like, I will never ever shout at you, but then goes so much to the other side that they will even not express their needs or wants. And so there's always either kind of you repeat the same thing or you go to complete opposite. But still, it's very helpful to know, okay, this is where it comes from.
Okay. So you've spoken about grandiosity and you've spoken about, okay, if someone, your partner's mad at you, some people just go into shame. And you've kind of said it makes you feel small and these sort of things. What else is sort of expressed in these stages, and what do we all need to know about these stages?
Yeah, let's bring in the other element here. So we're making this a quadrant, so you guys can Google the relationship grid by Terry Real.
It's like a plus sign.
It's like
and
a plus
4
sign.
different quadrants.
Exactly. So and on the top half, the top two are grandiosity, and the bottom are shame. And then we have two sides, left and right. And on the left, so the axis here is how boundaried are you. On the left is we are walled off. We are all the way closed. Our boundaries are up, cannot get in, nothing gets out, right? And there's two boundaries, like how much do you let in and how much of yourself do you let out. Walled off means, boom, I'm closed. And then on the other side is boundaryless. I have no boundaries. I'm all up in your business and you're all up in mine, and we are super enmeshed. This is where the codependence lives. And so when we really want to understand where we're at and how these kind of 4 quadrants manifest in our lives, it's really helpful to bring them together. So for example, going into, if let's say we start on the top left, we are walled off and we're grandiose. That's contempt. That's like, you don't deserve my attention. You're not good enough. I'm out of here. I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt, or I'm not even going to engage with you. Oof. This is a really hard one, because that person in that triggered state, right? We're not talking about the character of the person. It is the triggered state of that inner child or inner part that comes in. That inner part has no interest in connection because they're convinced that they're better and the other person is below them and they're just out. That's a really hard one. But this is a different one from if you're in shame and walled off. Shame and walled off is very often depression. It's like, what's the point? Everything's hopeless anyway. I'm shit, and there's nothing going to change, right? So there is a big, again, this deflated energy of, I don't know. There's nothing to do, and I don't even want to engage. I don't even want to talk about it.
Oh, walled off is tough.
It is tough.
It's hard to break down, and it feels like they're stuck. Yeah. They've kind of put themselves there, and there's no room for improvement.
Yeah. And of course, it's a spectrum. So when you imagine this plus sign in the middle where these two axes meet, that's the circle of health, or this is like where healthy relationships are. And it's not just one point. There is like a spectrum, right? We all go a little bit up, a little bit down. By the way, we all go out of the circle of health at least 50% of the time. All the time. No one is ever always super in their self and love and so on. We all go places.
It's such a good reminder.
Yeah. So this is, it's also just super important to normalize this. We all get triggered all the time. But the skill is to catch ourselves and to maybe reduce the amplitude a little bit. So in the beginning, you might go all the way walled off, right? Or all the way boundaryless, which we're going to talk about in a minute, where you're really you're just out. But the more you're kind of in your higher self and you've had some conversations and these other parts of that connection actually is beautiful and it's important, there can be maybe a little bit more of a door opening, a little bit more coming closer towards the middle. And even just naming, like this is again where the presence and awareness comes in. Naming, wow, I feel my body, or I feel like I'm really shutting off right now. Parts of me are just closing off. I don't even want to engage right now. That is already distancing ourselves a little bit from the experience, coming a little bit into the observer and being like, hey, there's a part of me, which is not the whole me, but there's a part of me that has a reaction right now, and that reaction is withdrawal. Mm-hmm. But actually, let me voice it so that we can do something about it together. So this is why, as you said, how are we the problem? Once we know how we are the problem, it makes it easier for us to identify. It makes it easier for us to name, and then it makes it easier for us to do something about it.
Now speak about being boundaryless, and then I have so many questions for you.
Okay, so boundaryless is the opposite, right? It's the other side. It's almost like there aren't enough boundaries. This is where a lot of drama, TV drama, pop culture, love songs, all of this happen over there. So we have, let's start again with the grandiose and the boundaryless. That's intrusive. That's where anger lives. This is like, I need you to hear me now because what I have to say is important and you cannot go away. Don't you walk away from me. Stay here. Listen to me.
Wow.
All of that energy, you can feel it energetically. It's intrusive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have even goosebumps as I say it.
Telenovela.
Very.
Okay.
Very. Again, not to blame it, not to judge it. It comes from a need. Right? It's an adaptive child, an adaptive part, a protector in us that adapted to some childhood wounds and is like, I need something now. I need closeness. I need love. I need you to hear me. I need something. But the way we go about getting that need met is really like
it's like
immature.
Throwing a tantrum. Yeah.
Exactly. It's immature. It's unhealthy. And we just want to kind of get better at it. And so noticing how anger, this is also where abuse lives. This is where physical violence lives on the edges, right? This is where when people go all the way into, I am entitled to your body, I'm entitled to your time, I'm entitled to your attention. That's the grandiose, intrusive entitlement. And then there are smaller versions of this, right? So we have the big out there that is the real like intense and shady and difficult abuse. And there's just like, wait, don't you walk away from me. No, I need to have this conversation now. And I need you to hear me now. And the other person might not be ready. Going back to the role play we did. If we're sitting at lunch and you're a little bit walled off because you're busy in your head doing something, and I'm here and saying, no, stop what you're doing and listen to me. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit of that. I know better and I need you to do something or else. Mm-hmm. So there's that energy. When we're going down to boundaryless, and in shame,
shameful.
It's like, please give me your time. I need you. Oh my God. Oh, without you, I'm nothing. This is also the love songs, the pop songs, the telenovelas. This is codependence. I'm like, how I feel depends on your attention. How I feel, if I'm feeling good about myself, if I can go through my day, depends on whether you text me or not. Please. I don't have enough. I'm not boundaried enough to kind of have my own energy cocoon around me and kind of be resting in myself, but my well-being depends so deeply on you as if you were my caregiver, right? As if my life actually would depend on you. And again, that shows us that comes from childhood. That comes from a time where our life did depend on other people. And then we did get hurt and our needs weren't met. And so we're like, no, and now I need to make sure that my needs are met somehow. But maybe I don't feel good enough. Right? I don't feel good enough to have my needs met. So I'm going around trying to somehow for you to give me what I want, but I'm not really saying it because I'm actually not worthy, but also, could you only please? So there's a lot of things like manipulation in there where we're like trying to get the other person to do something from like the shadowy realm. When we're in the grandiose, it's not always like a kind of very, let's say, out there and clear, but there's like more of a demand versus when we go one down, there's a bit more of like trying somehow to lure the other person in, because without them, I can't live.
So let me ask you, do different people fall on different parts of the spectrum depending on what the trigger is? Or do most people sort of have the one quadrant that they tend to go to?
Yes, and yes. So I think we all have like in certain situations with our, let's say, romantic partners, we have like a go-to, but very often it's a two-step. Mm-hmm. For example, my go-to is, for example, to go one down, boundaryless, like codependent, I need you, oh my God. But if I don't get it from you, I go all the way up, walled off, grandiose, I don't even need you. Like I need you, but if you're not available, fuck off. No, thank you. I actually work with a couple where he's the exact opposite. He goes into one up boundary, let's say, goes into anger first, but when anger doesn't work, he goes one down, walled off. He's like, there's no point. There's no point. Everything's hopeless. I'm out. Mm-hmm. So often it's, we're trying one, and if that doesn't work, we do the other. And in different relationships, I think also different things come out. So often with our family, different stuff comes up than with our partners. Mm-hmm. But it's and there's even not like a clear correlation of like that you would say someone who's one down and boundaryless always attracts someone who is one up and grandiose. No, it's like all the different variants can kind of coexist. Often we attract someone who kind of mirrors our childhood trauma and allows us to heal, right? This is kind of the thing of where we're
to reprogram,
to meet our own pain over and over again until we kind of meet it with love. We do our work and we kind of move through to the other side. It's a lot of work.
It is. And as I'm hearing you speak about these, I think of course, the ask for everyone tuning in is to figure out where they fall on that spectrum and then to just clock it and try and reel it in a little bit. But I'm also imagining that there's a lot of couples out there listening to this kind of trying to map where their partner is on this map. And for those that are trying to map it or go, I have a partner who's in this quadrant or that quadrant, what do you have to say to them?
Mm-hmm. I think the way you phrase it is really sweet because we want to start with ourselves. The danger of having a tool like this is that we go into blaming, shaming, criticizing of like, look, I caught you. You're this. See, now this is coming up again. And suddenly, we are just playing out our own little pattern, right? Our own, Terry calls them losing strategies, maybe the losing strategy of being right. Like, I got you and I know better. So my invitation would be to really remember that there is intelligence behind these adaptations. We all go into these different quadrants because at some point in our lives, that strategy kept us safe. That imagine the 5-year-old version of your partner who was really scared, maybe from their parents, from kindergarten, school, whatever, and they decided that being one up and boundaryless is the way to go, and it created more safety. They learned it back then, and now they're 35 and they're still running the same pattern. All right. So coming with a little bit of compassion that no one does this on purpose because they're a bad person. No one does this just to hurt the other or just to be a dick. We're all doing this to keep ourselves safe, and it's an instinctual nervous system reaction. Mm-hmm. And then when we can have a conversation about it where we own our own side and we're also bringing in curiosity about the other side, like, hey, where do you think you're on this?
Yeah.
How do we interact? Look, you're here and I'm there. Of course we blow up at each other. And so this is something that Terry calls the dance. The dance between a couple is the more one person does this, the more the other person does this. Classic example, the more nagging and demanding she gets, the more he withdraws. Mm-hmm. The more he withdraws, the more demanding she gets. Right? Other example, the more angry he is, the more angry she gets. The more angry he gets, the more angry she gets. And so they have this spiral, this dance. Mm-hmm. And when we can identify the dance between two people, again, it gives us the agency to be like, wait, what? We're starting our dance. Look, we're doing the same thing, and it's always going to end the same way in disconnection. So we want to take a breath and we want to learn how to counteract it. And that might mean taking a conscious time out, taking a breath. That might mean kind of almost like pulling ourselves back to the center, being like just naming, wow, that's all the way up in your business. Let me come back to myself. Or wow, I'm really walled off. Let me kind of lean into this conversation again. And then we can always ask, what do we need in order to do that? What do we need? Do I need a hug? Do I need reassurance? Do I need a bit of space? Do I need to postpone this conversation until tomorrow? Right? Do I need to be heard about this and this? All of these are communication tools that help us then having the conversations about these inner parts and this dynamic between us.
Yeah. And as I think about relationships, I feel like everyone has this advice of it's all about communication. And as I really think about that advice, I think, yeah, it's not about just communication in the good times. It's actually your ability to have communications in the tough times. And in that sense, I really think it's about how well do you repair. Yeah. I've had many older friends, therapists, different people who've been in, a couple for 30 plus years. And they say, yeah, it's not really about communication. It's really about, people will fight. If you're going to live intimately together, you're going to fight. You must accept that this is a reality, especially if the deeper the intimacy, there will be moments of, fire in the relationship. And it's this question of how do the two of you go into repair and bounce out of that as quickly as possible and back to love. And so with these quadrants in mind, tell me a little bit about some strategies for when you are in the middle of this fighting pattern and dance with your partner. What are some strategies we can hold on to and go, oh, wait, that podcast said, not that we, when we're in the middle of a fight, we're going to recall this, but yeah. What are some things to keep in mind to go, these are some good strategies to use?
Yeah. Great question. I think the first of all is taking a breath. Because what happens usually in a fight is trigger meets trigger and everything speeds up. Everything speeds up. Even if people are walling off, even that kind of like intensifies itself. So when we can breathe, we can regulate our nervous system a little bit more and we can feel ourselves a little bit more and have a bit more presence of, okay, what is actually going on here?
And do you, actually, it's so rare that I do this in a fight, even though I love to breathe in general. If I'm stressed, I do. And if I'm by myself or if I might take a time out. Yeah. But do you actually, in the middle of a fight, would you go, okay, time out, I need a break. Yeah. I need to breathe. Or can we breathe? Do you ask your partner to breathe with you?
Yeah. I remember one situation really clearly where I was very adamant of bringing in conscious communication through NVC, nonviolent communication, where you talk about the observation, the feeling, the need, and then the request. And I was like, okay, what I'm observing is, what I'm feeling is, and I mechanically went through the tool, but it worked to slow us down. It worked to kind of not go into the spiral of the dance. I'm a huge fan of safe words. A safe word like avocado or something really ridiculous. Ideally, you'd kind of take something that has like a little bit of an inside joke for the two of you. And when either of you notices that you're just in the dance, you're just doing the same thing again, you're not really listening, no one wants to connect, you just want to win, or you just like walled off, you say the safe word and you agree beforehand what happens when you say the safe word. And it can be like a 3-step process. For example, we take a break, we take a breath, we smile at each other and we remind each other that we love each other. And then you continue fighting, right? But that is already a bit of a circuit breaker of like, hey, it's not you against me. And you probably have heard this before. It's not you against me, it's us against the problem. But so often it becomes you against me, where I don't feel like I can be safe if I don't win. Or I don't feel like I can be heard if I don't shout. We want to break that circuit. We want to take a breath. Sometimes we will need to do a conscious timeout where we literally physically leave each other for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. That's something also from Terry Real. He's very clear on to make timeouts conscious. You got to tell each other that you will be back, when you will be back, and to actually be back at that time. And if you say, I need a timeout for 30 minutes. You come back after 30 minutes. And if you need another hour, you tell them then, but you do come back. You never leave the person hanging, because so many people have abandonment trauma. And if someone just leaves without saying anything, just to regulate, it's very painful. So again, bringing in that little bit of presence, that little bit of consciousness. I have clients who have that list on their fridge. What do they do? Right? There's like communication tools. There is the timeout sheet from Terry Real, which is on Terry's website. I feel like I'm doing the marketing for Terry, which is great. And all of this you want to agree on with your partner in a regulated moment when you're not in the fight. And you want to practice it in small doses. I always say to people, you can't run a marathon if you haven't trained. And fighting is like running a marathon. So you want to train having the breath, having the conscious communication, having the check-in, saying what's actually here, how do I feel? In moments that are maybe just like a micro trigger, or just like maybe no trigger at all, to make it a habit.
Or even in loving date night situations like we came up with at the very beginning of the show. And
then one more thing I want to share is, because you asked for, okay, what do we do in these fighting situations? If we can find what's actually there underneath. So I'm just thinking of a situation with a couple the other day where he was talking about something and she got upset and she was like, I don't need to know the details. It's about this, it's about that. But actually her upset wasn't about what he said. It was about something underneath where she didn't feel connected enough to him. They hadn't spent enough time with each other. So they were for like a minute fighting about, oh, should he say these details? Should he not say these details? But actually what she wanted was quality time. And she could drop into this really quickly, and we celebrated like how quickly it was. In the moment she said, I just miss you. He was like, oh my God, I miss you too. And boom, the love was back. Where they were at each other a little bit before, because they had the ability to kind of feel, wait, right? It's this typical phrase of, it's not about the dishes. When you fight about the dishes, it is never about the dishes. It's always about an unmet need. And that's also, I think, a part of knowing ourselves. The better we know what our typical unmet needs are, the quicker we can identify them. You know, I know for me, it's usually like one of my biggest triggers is when I make up that people are not interested in me. They don't make space and time for me. They don't ask me questions. There is no space for me. Yeah. And so I know that when I'm triggered, 80% of the time, it's probably that. Okay, that makes it much easier to ask for what I want, to reassure myself, to take it from there.
I really love that. Riké, we could speak about this for hours and hours, and hopefully one day soon we'll get a chance to do this again. For all of you out there, I would love to share with you that we will be posting every month on the 13th of every month. We're trying to create a little bit more consistency. So you can expect us to be back then. Until then, we'll put everything in the show notes of how to reach Riké. If you guys are struggling at home in your relationships, I know she's an amazing, amazing resource. And you can check out Terry Real. You can check out his book, Us. It's also an amazing Audible that he reads himself.
That's called Fierce Intimacy also.
And Fierce Intimacy was an earlier one, I think, right? Yeah. So all of these resources will plug into this podcast. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Erika.
Hey there. If you like this episode and you're getting some beautiful transmissions or are feeling inspired to support this podcast in any way, the best way to do that is to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube, or wherever it is that you're plugging into the Enlighten DXB podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Enlighten DXB. If you want to reach out to any of the guests we have on the show, you can check out their profiles and their work at www.enlightendxb.com. And for those of you in Dubai looking for community, retreats, or additional resources, you can also sign up to our emailing list there. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Until then, I wish you more joy, more ease, and a little sprinkle of grace.